Our speaker for today, Mr. SRV Subrahmaniam, popularly known as Subbu. Subbu is an accomplished agile consultant and a OKR coach with over 20 years of experience, driving transformation and change management in product houses and global in-house centers, GICs. His passion for driving organizational transformation and helping businesses achieve their desired outcome has made him a trusted advisor to many organizations looking to adapt agile methodologies and OKRs. Additionally, Subbu has extensive experience in implementing the scaled agile framework and helping organizations maximize their outcomes through OKR framework. He is also sought after public speaker and an active member of Business Agility Institute. His expertise and experience make him an excellent choice as a trainer and subject matter expert for edTalk getting better as an agile developer. He is the founder of Outcome Plus Consulting, offering a comprehensive suite of services, including consulting, coaching, training, and automation. Welcome, Subbu.
Hey, thanks a lot for this opportunity, and it gives me immense pleasure to be part of this webinar, uh, connecting to a larger audience. And also, it's always a pleasure to be part of EdForce's events. So, what are we talking? So, basically, when EdForce came to me and said, Subbu, what would be a suitable topic? So, what came to my mind was that now that agile and lean frameworks are kind of sweeping the industry, how do developers acclimatize to this new ways of working? So what is acceptable, what is not acceptable? How do they get better in this new way of working? I thought that will be something which will be of interest. And that's what I'm looking to share in this particular webinar. And as always, it's not about just me sharing. I would also like to welcome feedback. I would also hear back your any questions you might have on this particular topic. So let me share my screen. Yeah. So how do we get better as an agile developer? So before we get into what specific topic we want to get into, let me just take you through. Okay, I think yes, this I think EdForce panelists talked about it. Yeah, so what we want to talk about is what are the key aspects of agile software development. So let us rework on those, and then we'll figure out what are the technical skills and soft skills which will power us, and what will be the career path for agile developers. Okay, so this is the Agile Manifesto. This was formulated in 2001 and very much relevant today as well. So what is the Agile Manifesto talking about explicitly? So it talks about the power of individuals and interactions. So which means how do individuals and teams collaborate with each other, working with each other. It means likes of, pair programming, mob programming or swarming, or how well are you able to brainstorm or problem solve together, rather than following a set process, filling up templates, filling up checklists, getting signatures, etc. And second is, what are the true indicator of progress? It is working software, rather than going through reams of documentation and saying that, yes, the detailed design is complete or the requirements are complete. So what do we really want to see is proof in the pudding, that is working software. And third is customer collaboration. So when we work with customers, be it internal or external customers, we really want to maximize the value for the customers rather than haggling over whether it's a change request or a bug or a new functionality, and in the whole process, delaying the value creation. So while we really want to have processes or tools or documentation, or contracts, we really want to make it as flexible as possible and as smooth as possible. And ultimately, we all know, we've all experienced it big time over the past 3 years with COVID, the Ukraine war, the inflation, that there are changes all over us, and we really can't say plans won't change, requirements are frozen or design is frozen. What we can merely say is, yes, we made a plan and we are willing to change the plan to adjust to the new reality. So this is what they clearly say. We are going to live with processes and tools, documentation, contracts and plan, but we know that yes, this is important, but we are really not just going to be fixated on these. And now then comes the 12 Agile Manifesto principles. So it is about, so we want frequent and early releases to customer so that customer can start realizing business value at the earliest. So here comes the point that if you are going to deliver a feature 1 month later, so it's a 1 month setback for the customer, because for that 1 month, the customer would not be able to realize business value. And we also want welcome changing requirements, because the market is continuously evolving, competitors are racing over us. So requirements are going to be evolving, and so we want to get it into our product so that we are able to harness it for our competitive advantage. And ultimately, like we said in the first one, we want to deliver working software frequently. And the fourth one is, I think this is in line with the larger digital transformation story we've been hearing all over. Agile or software development is not end in itself. Ultimately, the software you develop is for helping your company get ahead in business. So ultimately, be it you are in internal application development or you are working for a software product company, it ultimately means that you should help your company get to better business outcomes. And that is where we really want to have likes of product owners coming from business, so that ultimately we are working towards greater business outcomes at a company level. And we want to work towards motivated individuals. So this is where we want individuals to be self-driven, and we don't expect the leadership also to micromanage or keep ordering the team members around. We want team members to self-organize and figure out how will they do the work. And the sixth one is related to the collaboration point, which we are talking about earlier, individuals and interactions. So it is about how do we relate to each other, how do we work with others, members in the team, and that is face-to-face conversation, be it in Zoom or face-to-face if you are getting into office. And seventh one is working software, the primary measure of progress. And here again, please remember, it's a team outcome which counts. So if you are a developer or a tester, it's not good to say, hey, I have done my development or I've done my testing, my job is over. So ultimately, we are moving towards a situation where even the performance appraisals are tied to team outcome, which is a working software. And then second is the working software of to the liking of the product owner, because he is your internal customer. And ultimately, we want to have sustainable development where we are able to churn out a working software every single sprint. And that has to happen in a sustainable pace. And the ninth one is reinforcing the point that agile software development is not for mediocre developers. So that is in direct relevance to what we are talking today. So it is for good software developers and who are learning all the time. And ultimately, we want to build reliable products, scalable products, easily maintainable products, which can live long, and which can continue to deliver business value, and which are easy to maintain. So this is where the focus on product engineering, reliability engineering, all of it takes a center stage. And the 10th one is how do we remove waste? How do we make things simpler, be it in terms of process or in product design? And 11th one is again of direct interest in this particular webinar. We are talking about how teams, Scrum teams, can build great products with architectures, requirements, and design. So basically, the teams are having the capability to architect requirement, formulate the requirement and design, and they also have not just the capability, but they are good at it. So which means traditionally, if your team is composed of only developers and you're looking for guidance elsewhere, that has to change. And we really want good, capable design and architecting ability within the. And 12th is about retrospectives and continuous improvement. How do we get better on a continuous basis? Okay, so let us start with the first expectation of any agile team member. Okay, so two things I'm going to be focusing on. One is I'm not going to distinguish what's your role in the team. Okay, whether it's a tester or a configuration engineer or a test automation engineer or a developer. And in development, you have UI, backend, or middleware, right? So ultimately, I am, as the Scrum Guide does know, every single person in a team is a developer. So even a tester is a developer. So ultimately, all of us are working towards producing a working software. So first thing, it is about collaboration. So individual output is only as good as it helps the team output. So as like in a game of cricket or football, what matters is whether you are able to win the game or not. So it is not about individual performance. It is about team outcome, which matters here. So how does where do the team? How does the team collaborate? The first one is it is refining the backlog. So as you all realize, so when the backlog refinement happens, the expectation is the team, along with the product owner, is able to come up with a shared and a common understanding of the backlog. So this means asking questions, even contributing to the backlog, and also possibly splitting the stories as needed. And it will also be about contributing enabler stories like, infrastructure enablers or architecture enablers, as the case may be. So again, it is not just listening to the product owner and saying yes or no, but actively participating. And this is the planning the sprint is what an agile team does. It's about the team planning their work. Please remember, in an agile team, it is a team which plans the work and team which manages the work. So when the team plans the work, it is so the Scrum Master plays a facilitator's role, product owner sets the goal for the sprint and also explains the backlog. So it is the team which manages plans the work, allocates the work, estimates the work. So this again, we want the team members to take a proactive leading role in this, because that's how a self-organizing team works. I'll just pause for a minute here, back in a minute. Yeah, back. So how do we plan? So then we have the daily stand-up, or the daily scrum where the team syncs up. So this is also a testimonial to the self-organizing ability of the team to really figure out whether they are on track or off track to achieving the sprint objectives and take corrective actions as needed. So this is typically inspect and adapt on a daily basis. And this is again left to the team to figure out whether they are on track, off track, and then plan the next steps. And the iteration review is about getting feedback from the product owner and business stakeholders and figure out how the product could get better. And retrospective is again a team game. Scrum Master is only a facilitator. How can we get better? And also while also recognizing the team's strengths. So this is again coming back, right? Ultimately, working software is the primary measure of progress. So all of us should be working towards the team goals and collaborating actively. So what does collaborating mean? Collaboration means talking, communicating where needed. Collaboration means being open to feedback. And collaboration also is about thinking out of the box, new ideas, contributing new ideas, and also constructively looking at what are the feedback coming from other members and working together as one unit with focusing on the team outcome, which is getting the working software done. So this is the point which again Scrum Guide envisages. Scrum engages groups of people who collectively have all the skills and expertise to do the work. So this is where when the Scrum team is formed, it needs to have all the skills. You cannot have a team of only developers, of only testers, or of only UI developers, or purely developers with no design or architecting skills. So the Scrum team should be able to define, design, build, and test, and even deploy working software. And ultimately, as we realize, working software is the primary measure of progress. So, reinforcing the point that it is teamwork, ultimately, when you get a group of members into a Scrum team, they are only a group. So they are in the forming state. And as time moves, they figure out what works, what doesn't work. There is a bit of conflict in the team. That's where they get into storming. Then they figure out what works to them. They come up with working agreements and they start working together as one unit and they move towards performing. So ultimately, it is teamwork. And as we see in the Tuckman's, this is called Tuckman's team stages. It is ultimately about teamwork. And that is why you see the role of a Scrum Master is primarily a team facilitator and a coach. So when we say facilitation, the Scrum Master helps the team come up with constructive agreements, constructive outputs, and makes the meetings meaningful. So again, to reinforce the point that it is all about teamwork. And if you are really aspiring to be an Agile developer, you need to be, even if you are an introvert, you should start looking at how do I contribute in the meetings, and how do I start working with other members in the team. So now we talked about the point, at least I was also talking about in these two specific items, that when we say refining the backlog or planning the sprint, we want not just nodding yes or no to what the product owner says, but it is also about proactively contributing. Okay, what is it that you see comes up in the product? For instance, it might be about contributing enabler stories. I want this new test infrastructure, or I want this new tools in the system, or we want to enhance the CI/CD pipeline with something else. Or it might be about looking at this part of the code which needs to be refactored. Or it can be about using new tools or new APIs which are available in the market. So it is always about thinking newly or new ways to doing things. So that is where we want agile teams to be good doers, great doers, because that's how you'll get working software. But we also want them to be good thinkers. So they cannot just be doers where they say, okay, somebody gives me the requirements and design, I'll convert it into working software. That is good part of it, but we also want them to have a say in both requirements and design. So that's where we expect the team members to contribute to the product backlog. We want them to architect the product. We want them to build and better the CI/CD pipeline. And in a DevOps world, we want them to be collaborating with the ops team. And we want them to contribute innovative thoughts. And this is where reinforcing the principle, the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So here, coming back to the way agile teams are structured, so it is they're just not possibly early what you call require just developers who just join the company or developers with few years experience. Basically, how the industry is moving towards this, we have a lot of mature developers, a lot of senior developers in the team. So the team has a mixture of people with different different years of experience. They work in different areas, and ultimately it is cross-functional. Yeah, ultimately it is cross-functional. Why it is cross-functional is that the team has all the skills and abilities to define, design, build, and test the product. So it's no longer what you call typically conforming to the pyramidal structure where a lot of people who are at entry level are at a team level, and then probably the architects and designers and senior people are at much higher levels of the organization. So a lot of the trend is a lot of people even at senior levels are part of agile teams, and that's how you build great softwares, right? So given that that's the way it is happening, so we would want the ownership of the product to be with the team. So that's why there's a lot of literature on project focus or a product focus. So we want agile teams to have a product focus because there is a product roadmap, and they'll also want to have a technology roadmap to support the product roadmap. And when you look at a product roadmap, you also need to look at what is it that I need to scale up the product, make the product robust, make the product reliable, and make the product secure. And the answers, nobody is going to give those answers outside of the team. So it's the team which has to be proactive, which has to be responsive enough to the product and technology roadmap and figure out what needs to be done. And ultimately, as I said, in this point about continuous attention to technical excellence and good design, agile is not for mediocre developers. So why do we have agile teams? And agile teams are also not coming in cheaply, right? Agile requires good developers, good and capable developers. They're not going to come free. So how do we define good and capable developers? First thing is they know how to write clean code. So why is clean code important? They're not going to code in a hurry. So clean code is I'm basically writing code in adherence to principles of object-oriented programming, like adhering to solid principles. So what does adherence to object-oriented principles mean? It also means that, yes, obviously, I'm going to write the class and object modules in compliance with object-oriented programming principles, like solid here. Second is, I'm always looking at how do I improvise the code to make it simpler. And I'm going to make it secure at first place. So we don't want some security tester somewhere late in the system to point out a coding failure, right? So when I am coding, I'm going to build quality in, which means right from security or performance or how the code is organized, all of it I'm going to take care at first instance, so that I'm building the code which is easy to understand, easy to maintain, and it is ultimately flexible. So what is it that Agile developers should do? They should not compromise code quality for speed. Yes, there may be situations where such a dilemma might occur, but when you get into such a situation, you should be able to at least articulate what's the trade-off which is in store, so that the team takes a collective decision. And they recognize technical debt. Technical debt is the imperfections in the code which have creeped over multiple time periods, and they are ultimately hampering the ability to build more software. Because we have technical debt, you're going to get more bugs. Adding new features is going to be difficult. Maintenance is going to be difficult. So even a novel bug fix is going to be difficult because the code organization is not proper. So ultimately, technical debt pulls the product down. So good developers bring up technical debt to the overall team's attention and to the PO's attention, and then ultimately some part of it is going to be prioritized for addressing. And they take ownership for quality and strive to make the code secure at first. So one aspect of clean coding is also about using techniques like TDD, test-driven development, and then ultimately with test-driven development, I'm also going to automate code, automate unit tests as much as possible, so that they all go into my CI/CD pack and they are continuously executed, so that I'm going to get a feedback on how things are progressing. And I talked about the term called cross-functionalism. So what is cross-functionalism? So the team has all the necessary skills to define, design, build, and test a working software. So now, if I am a UI developer, I am a backend developer. So for 5 or 6 days, I have my work. So rest of the days, what am I going to do? Keep quiet. So if you are a pure UI developer, this is what you'll do. I'll pick up the tasks related to my UI development, and once I'm done, I'll just keep quiet. But that's not the behavior we expect from an Agile developer. So the developer builds some broad general knowledge in other areas. So yes, my specialist tasks are done. So how can I contribute and build, or how can I contribute in development, or how can I contribute in testing, or how can I contribute in backend development, so that at least he or she can support the other team members where needed. That's a broad general knowledge. Then as with time, he or she also picks up another thread of knowledge. So it can be testing or test automation or build or deployment scripts, or it can be about backend development. And ultimately, a comb-shaped developer to a full stack developer, so that the developer can contribute to the product development in a complete manner. It's not going to be in a siloed or a myopic manner only for a specific area. So that is why you will know that full stack developers are in demand and they command a huge salary, simply because they are able to contribute to the product development in a wholesome manner, and they are able to have a complete view of the product. So when they say they are able to see the complete technical stack, they are able to work out the interdependencies, and they have a complete technical view of how the product development is going to pan out. So then their estimates or their perception of risk, all of them become much more valuable. So the big message is about attitude. Okay, I'll not step out of my comfort area, or I'll just stick to my siloed area of expertise, is no longer seen as desirable. And of course, it's your call whether you want to stop here or here, but being in I-shaped is totally not acceptable in an Agile. And ultimately, if you look at Agile or Scrum, it is about having smaller cycles. So these smaller cycles are for getting quick and early feedback. So the feedback is one from business, right? So when I say business, it's about whether what we build is useful for the business stakeholders. And second is also about technical feedback. So when I deploy something in a test environment or in a staging environment, I'm going to get valuable feedback on whether the software works, what are the potential issues, and I may try something and I will also be curious to figure out what happens. So it is about being open to feedback and being in a position to correct the approach based on the feedback. Again, boils down to attitude. And this is one of the tougher aspects in terms of building capability. So ultimately, we say that your requirements are changing, your design is changing, right? So it means that so changing requirements is handled as part of user stories. So a new set of user stories comes in for every single sprint. But in the background, you also need to figure out how am I going to do emergent design. So this is a skill which is very much in the demand in the industry, and not many people are good at it. So it is ultimately marrying two concepts. One is called intentional architecture. You just can't design or architect without an end state in mind. So the end state in mind could be what is called as your intentional or your intentional architecture. So how do I go about it in an incremental fashion? Item is what we call as your emergent design. So ultimately, this is also a skill which needs to be developed by all of you. So now coming to soft skills. So we talked about how teams are able to self-organize, self-manage themselves. So one critical skill which team members need to build is, how am I going to collaboratively solve problems? So this is again thinking out of the box. This is again getting out of the comfort areas, and ultimately it is about our willingness to experiment and innovate. So when we look at innovation happens after experimentation. So when you have experiments, there are sometimes where you are extremely excited because whatever you wanted to try works, and there is going to be some times where you're extremely disappointed because some of the things don't work. So experiments are always double-edged. Some work, some don't work. So it is about displaying that attitude to try out new things, not just go with settled expectations or settled notions, but trying out new things, and obviously setting out a clear boundary of what you want to attempt, so that we are able to figure out how do we get the capacity and time for that. So it is again not just an individual attribute, it's a team attribute of how do we take ownership of problems, and how do we solve problems, and how do we escalate when it goes beyond a point. So ultimately, Agile developers are good in what they do. They are good developers and good team players. Yeah, as we said, so they are able to do clean coding. They are able to understand and appreciate refactoring. They are good in automation, UT automation, understanding the CI/CD pipeline, TDD, and ultimately moving towards full stack development. And this is something which I haven't talked about it in a fair level of detail, but I want to spend time. Developer discipline. So what is developer discipline? So you take a large product development setup where you have, you take a typical safe agile release train. So you're having about 80 to 100 developers in a train. So which means all 80 to 100 developers are going to merge their code to the main trunk. So it is not a good practice nowadays to have feature branches or branches for every single team. So what it does is, it puts off the integration activity to a future time period. So that is, postponing the integration to a later time, which is a big risk. So we really want the developers to integrate to the main trunk on a daily basis. So if 80 to 100 developers are going to merge their code every single day, that is going to bring them a lot of risk. Is the code stable? Is the build not failing? Are we still able to do our end-to-end operations? Are we still good to go to production? A lot of these questions arise. So all of these have only one answer if the developers are disciplined. So which means they take the latest version from the main and then integrate their code, test it locally, and then do the related automated unit tests, and then push and then merge their code to the main. So is this developer discipline being followed meticulously is the only answer. So obviously, in large product development setup, if developer indiscipline is going to contribute to failed builds or failed deployments, then obviously the level of tolerance is going to be low. So, and with a lot of companies now migrating to SAFe and DevOps being the de facto development paradigm apart from Agile, which is driving product development, this developer discipline has become absolutely indispensable. And what are the software aspects? They are good in collaboration, problem solving, and learning mindset. So obviously, we look forward to the company to support in our learning efforts, but that is only one part of it, which I call probably 20% of your learning. But 80% of your learning should come from your own self, how you are learning on your own or working with your teams to learn new stuff on the job. So this has to be self-driven, and this also comes to the point of intrinsically motivated team members. So intrinsic motivation means you're not going to be motivated because your company is going to give you a good salary. So obviously, I'm not telling that you're going to work for free, but then it is that larger passion of software development which has to drive, which typically we see driving good software professionals, and it's their intrinsic urge to learn and get better all the time, trying new things. So that is why when you look at the typical what motivates knowledge workers, we talk about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So we don't want developers to be micromanaged, and they want to be good at what they're doing. That is what we call as mastery, and ultimately they want to understand the larger purpose. Experimenting and attempting new things, self-driven, and they embody the Scrum values. So what are the Scrum values? Probably let us look at the Scrum guide. This is the Scrum values. So what are they? Commitment. So which means as a team, when they come to a sprint goal, they're going to make all efforts to achieve that commitment, because who makes the plan? Teams make the plan, and they are also focused on achieving the sprint outcome. They're not going to be diverted. They have openness to new ideas, to new thoughts. They have respect. So while they hold, probably they might hold their thoughts as very important. They are not going to disrespect other opinions. There's going to be a healthy respect for other professionals and diverse opinions within the team. You're not going to be shut. So openness and respect go hand in hand, especially when you hear something which is diametrically opposite to what you hold as important. And courage. So courage to really call out risk or call out items which are not pleasant to hear. Like if the entire team says, hey, we'll do it, but you know that there's a huge elephant in the room. Probably there is a huge piece of refactoring, unrefactored code, which the team has obviously ignored. So should I stand up as one man and call it out that yes, There is the elephant in the room, which is this unrefactored code. We cannot do it. So that's where you're displaying professional courage, but then you're not misleading the business stakeholders. So it is the courage to stand up to the professional ethic and commitment, which is also very, very important. So Agile developers are also going to embody these Scrum values. So they're not mere S-men who are just going to develop what has been told to them. So this is about the social skills. And ultimately, what is the career path? So early, at least in the Indian IT industry, we've seen that probably not so long ago, your development period was less than around 4 to 6 years. So then you became a project lead and then a project manager and whatnot. And basically, you are going to forget coding. But with the advent of Agile, people management as a profession or a career has come down, because we are talking of self-managing teams, self-organizing teams. So obviously, the people management aspect is actually coming down. So we have 3 basic roles, which is the Scrum Master, Product Owner, and the team. So we expect a lot of people or a good part of the organization to be within the teams, and within the teams, there's no hierarchy. So you are a developer, and as you move on, you become a better developer, but you are still only a developer. So there's absolutely what you call it is the perfect thing to be, because ultimately developers are the ones who are building great products, and that is where the true intellectual property, or that's where the real engine which is powering product development or application development lies. So as you move on, probably you can become a designer or architect, but still be within the team. It's quite possible. Or you can become, if you look at SAFe, you can become a systems architect or an enterprise architect. But then a large pool of developers are going to contribute to building great products while being within the team. Not everybody can be promoted to a designer or an architect. So what is not going to happen is progression into people management, right? People management, that project manager, that kind of roles are fast disappearing. So you want to, then you might get, if it makes sense to you, you like facilitation, then you can become a Scrum coach, or you can become a Scrum Master or a coach, or you can get into product management. But again, product management, we expect it to have more of domain knowledge, more closer to customers. But if your product is ultimately a technical product, I'm building an API, or I'm building a SaaS product or a cloud product, then the product is technical. You might think of becoming a product owner and a product manager as you move on. But the kind of, the kind of view we had 15, 20 years back, that that you could just quickly do with coding and get into people management, customer management. So that kind of a view is no longer prevalent in the industry. So this is what I wanted to share in this particular session. I'll be happy to take questions now.
Hi, Subbu.
Hi.
If anyone has any questions, please let us know. I did get a question asking if there will be a recording for this session. We will be sharing the recording for this session. No, Subbu, seems everyone was very clear about what you taught. There are no questions is happening with the person. That's really nice, because a lot of people come back with very basic doubts which are not here, and people are still sticking around. Thank you, Subbu. Thanks a lot for making this edTalk so wonderful. It was great having you with us. We hope to see you soon. For any trainings and any consultations from Subbu, please do let us know. Do drop your feedback and email addresses. We do have amazing Amazon vouchers for people who write us Google reviews. So do write us feedbacks, stay in touch. Thanks a lot, Subbu, for being here. It's all our honor.
Yeah. Thanks you. Pleasure is mine.
Thanks. Thanks. Bye bye all.